Hello and welcome to day 6 of my Christmas crafting extravaganza. Today I'm jumping back on my Cricut to design some coasters to go onto my Christmas table. If you're new here, my name is Nicole and I love crafting, especially when it comes to Christmas time. So every day for the month of December I'm going to be crafting a different thing to make my house full of Christmas cheer and to of course decorate myself in Christmas stuff too. I've so far done a t-shirt and some earrings and I've got a whole bunch of other things planned too. So make sure you come back every day and see the different things that I'm getting up to. So these coasters were really simple to do. I just jumped onto the Cricut design space and searched up the word coaster and I found a whole bunch of images. So I just chose 4 that were of similar sort of style and I just resized them to the sizing of my coaster, leaving a slight little gap around the edge for the border. Then I sent it over to my Cricut machine to cut it out on this beautiful gold textured vinyl. So once it was all cut out, I just used my scissors to trim it down so that I would have each coaster piece individual. Just makes it so much easier for weeding and transferring over. So yeah, just cutting it all down into individual squares. So once I've done that, I needed to weed off all the excess vinyl. If you're new to using vinyl and Cricut, the term weeding means to just remove all of the excess that we're not using. So it's all the negative space, and then it will just leave us with what we are wanting to put onto our coaster. This process can sometimes be quite frustrating depending on the vinyl you've used, depending on how well the cut went through, and depending on how well you can actually see the image of how to weed it, of where to weed rather. So this one took me quite a while. There was some tiny little stars which I was struggling to find where they were because of the texture on the vinyl that I'm using. So I'm trying my very hardest not to pull them up with the image. And I'm just using my weeding tool to help hold it down in place, those little stars, and also then to help me lift up the vinyl as well. So this process took me quite a while to get them all weeded, mainly because some of them had the smaller designs. So it takes a little bit longer when there's smaller designs because you've got to be really careful that you don't accidentally lift them off with the excess vinyl. So once they were all weeded and ready to go, I am cutting myself some transfer tape. Now I like to reuse my transfer tape as many times as I can just to get the most out of it. So I'm going to try and do all 4 pieces out of the one piece, but we'll see how we go. I've got some more projects with Cricut later, so I can use any of the spare bits for that as well. So I'm just going to trim it down so that it is about the same size as each of those squares. And then just making sure that all those little bits were nice and flat. Going to just grab my transfer tape. Then very carefully, trying not to bubble it, just pop it down on the top of my design. So you want to make sure that you have got it adhered to that transfer tape really well. So giving it a nice good rub, I'm smoothing it down with my little tool here. I don't know what that tool is, a scraper tool maybe. And when we're ready to remove the backing, we want to make sure that we turn it over and pull the backing off of the tape, not the other way around, because this will just make sure that our design, or helps to ensure that the design stays on that transfer tape rather than sticking to the backing. So I've made sure that my coasters are nice and clean and that I'm ready to transfer this over. Now, as always, I'm just eyeballing it. I've not got measurements. I'm not using the grid. I'm just eyeballing it because close enough is good enough in my books. And then I'm just going to smooth it down again because we now want to transfer that image over onto the coaster. So just giving it a quick little rub there and pulling that tape off. Going slowly because if anything stays stuck to the transfer tape, we want to be able to push it back down and adhere it properly. So that one transferred beautifully across and that looks awesome. I really am happy with that. So now I just need to do the other 3. And I do end up using the same piece of transfer tape. So it worked fine for all 4 images. And I will still probably put it aside and use it again for another project another time because it's still got a little bit of stickiness there. I always try to save as much as I can and make as little waste as possible because that's the one thing that really gets me with vinyl crafts is the amount of waste that it creates. So if I can reuse something or pop something to the side, I will definitely try and do that. And as we move on to the last coaster here, we're just going to ignore the fact that I kind of made a little mistake on this one. And when I weeded it, I must have ripped part of the star off of the border. And also when I chopped down into those smaller squares, I must have cut a star as well. I didn't realize that the star was in that circular border, so I must have made a mistake and chopped it. But it's not overly noticeable, and I probably shouldn't have told you so then you wouldn't have noticed, but I'm just being honest, and I'll just make sure that when we sit down or use these coasters that I just keep that one for me and then no one will notice. See, you can hardly tell. And I reshot that frame with my finger over the star so that you couldn't actually see it. But I've used both images anyway, and I've told you about it, so there was no need for me to hide it. Anyway, there we go. All 4 coasters done. I'm super happy with how they turned out. That was really fun and simple craft to do. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another craft. I'll see you then. Bye!